Welcome to the Business Book Club interview with the author. Today we are speaking with Alex Noble on behalf of Brian Dovey about his book, The Idea is the Easy Part. Brian Dovey was a partner at a venture capitalist firm, Domain Associates, which was invested in 2.8 billion in startups from 1988 until his passing in August of 2023, sadly. So today we have the honor of speaking with Alex in regards to Brian's book. Brian, thank you so much for being here today with us, and I appreciate you spending the time with us here today.
Well, I wish it was Brian here speaking with you, but I'm a poor substitute. But my name is Alex D. Noble, not Noble. But okay, but it is my pleasure and it's my honor to be here. I wish you could have been doing this interview with Brian, but I've been working with his family, and I've had a chance to teach with him for many, many years, and they've asked if I could help represent the book on his behalf. So it's my honor to be here with you.
Absolutely. And thank you so much. We appreciate it. So my first question to you is, who would you say this book is written for?
Well, Brian wrote this book for people that are contemplating starting a business. Should I get into it? Should I not get into it? And that's the front end of the book. I mean, he talks about, how to evaluate opportunities, or even do you have the mindset to be an entrepreneur? Because it's a long journey. And so I think he wrote the book primarily for people contemplating a startup, but then more importantly, because the idea is the easy part, people that are already running a company that could gain wisdom and insight from the many lessons that he has to share around team building, around managing a growing firm.
Absolutely. So what would you say the main intent of this book would be?
The main, or what I typically get out of this book, and again, as I shared with you, I'm on my third reading of the book, and this is in addition to reading drafts of the book as Brian was producing the book, and we were going back and forth. But each time I read the book, I pick out new nuggets of wisdom. That's what I'm amazed with the most, and what I used to tell my students when I would bring Brian into a classroom setting is that he was very soft-spoken and was very folksy in how he communicated. So he had a very easy kind of a style, but it was just loaded with wisdom. And with each reading of this book, it deepens my understanding of the wisdom that he offers through his incredible experience and career trajectory.
Absolutely. So I heard you say that he was assisting in your classroom, and I believe he talked about that a little bit in the book. And I'm
Yeah.
curious to see, how did that relationship develop into becoming or coming into the classroom environment with
Boy,
Brian?
that's one of my favorite stories to share with you. Uh, I have been a professor at San Diego State University for many years. Actually, I just retired after a 40-year career on the faculty. But early in my career, and I'm talking about about almost 27 years ago now, I was a young professor at the time. My hair was a little bit different color than what it is right now, but we were developing an entrepreneurship program at our university. I mean, I was an entrepreneurship professor, and I was running a center, an entrepreneurship center. And I got a call one day from a man named Jeff Timmons. Jeff was a leading educator, the father of entrepreneurship education, if you will, and just a noted professor in our field. And Jeff Timmons calls me, and I'm like, who am I to take a call from Jeff Timmons? and Jeff says, and he's talked to me, use my first name. I said, Jeff Timmons knows my name. and and he says, Alex, I want you to meet a friend of mine who was a classmate of mine at Harvard, and he's now a venture capitalist, and he spends his time on both the East Coast and the West Coast, and he'd like to come and visit you. I told him a little bit about it. He'd like to come visit. So I'm all excited. I've got this major person coming to talk to me. And so Brian walks into our facility, and I'm there. I'm loaded for bear. I mean, I'm waiting to meet this guy. And I start showing him our collection of courses that comprised our entrepreneurship program at the time. And Brian is absorbing it, and he says, Alex, this is fantastic. This is great. And I'm feeling good. This guy likes what we're doing. He says, but I got one question for you. He says, all of your courses that you currently offer are focused on getting an entrepreneur to day one. Opportunity recognition, planning for writing a business plan, finding early resources. He said, what are you teaching your students about what happens after day one?
Very, very important.
And I was like a deer in headlights with that question. And for about 20 seconds, I froze. And then I looked at him and I said, Brian, that's the next course you and I are going to create. And we decided to focus on what happens after day one. And we decided, well, you have to manage a growing firm. And so he and I agreed to meet a week later, and each of us made a list of what could be taught in a class after day one about managing a growing firm. And he came back with his list, which was clearly much longer than my list. But between the two of us, we had enough topics that could cover a whole curriculum versus one course. So we had to narrow it down to a 15-week semester. And we massaged it, and we created this course called Managing the Growing Firm. And for the next 25 years, we co-taught this class at our university. And every year I'd ask Brian, do you want to teach with me again? And he always said yes. I was expecting the day to come when he would say, no, I'm tired of doing this, but that never happened. That never happened. So as you'll read in the introduction, he talks about those experiences, and it just literally it just brought back some fond memories for me, and was really the catalyst in a lot of ways for the book, because he loved to teach. And as he says in the introduction, but when I'm teaching one class at a time, there's only so many people I can impact. And Brian, like an entrepreneur, thinking about growth and scalability, he had to find a way to get his message out to a much broader audience. And that's why he wrote the book.
Very good. Well, I appreciate that insight. That is a wonderful story, and sounds like you guys built a great relationship and working together and creating new entrepreneurs and business owners and releasing them out into the world. Uh, so, could you tell me a little bit more about Brian's entrepreneurial journey? And I apologize if this is, before you and Brian started your relationship together,
Right.
but I don't feel like he talked about it a whole lot in the book. So I was curious to learn more about what his entrepreneurial journey was. And
Mhm.
I'm hoping you
You
can.
know, uh, that is a fantastic story in and of itself. And you're right. I mean, he touches on it a little bit in the book. But, um, he, like many people, graduated college. Now, what amazed me, he was a math major in college and graduated and took a corporate job and started a family with his lovely wife Betty, and then they had a child, and um, and so, but he was restless in his early corporate job, and ultimately went back to business school, and he talks about that in the book. He attended Harvard, um, but then as his career began to unfold, he found his way meeting a scientist, an entrepreneur that was working on uh, a project for the Army, because what they were concerned with at the time was soldiers in the field getting exposed to nerve gas. And there was an antidote for it, but they needed a rapid injection system. And this scientist had developed some kind of a system when he and Brian met. Now, the scientist was excellent at the technology, but Brian at that point had some business background and took over bringing that technology to the market. Now, I tell you that early story because um, that injection system that was applied to a need in the U.S. Army for soldiers in the field, Brian started thinking about what else can we do with this kind of a technology. And um, to make a long story short, that was how the EpiPen came to the marketplace. Um, because people with serious allergies that are vulnerable to attack, now there are medications that could help people in that critical situation. But when these attacks come, you're not surrounded by medical professionals. You have to be able to administer it yourself, the EpiPen. And I want you to think about how many lives were saved um, because of the innovation of the EpiPen.
Yeah, that's
Um, and so um, that was an entrepreneur, and actually, a colleague and I are writing a book on tech commercialization right now, and we talk about that because that was what we call a platform technology, um, a technology designed for one application, but it had features and benefits that could transfer over to other applications. And I just marvel at that. And that was Brian's claim to fame, if you will. I mean, working alongside Dr. Sarnoff, the inventor of the injection system, but bringing it to market is just as important as coming up with the innovation. And that's where Brian came in.
Absolutely. And I love the thought process. One thing about entrepreneurs and business owners and networking and being in groups like such as the Business Book Club, where you can take ideas that are implemented in one industry in one way and adapt them and change them so that they are suited for your industry and create a whole new method or way of doing things, which is the beauty of the collaboration and the learning and the growing together in this way. So it's wonderful. It's a great
Yeah.
story. He sounds like a wonderful gentleman. It's a shame that, he's not here
Yeah.
with us today to be able to share his story himself, but I am so happy to have you here with us and for your time in coming and expressing both Brian's story and your relationship and how you guys were able to collaborate and work together in order to support new business owners or new business entrepreneurs entering into the world. Is
Mhm.
there anything that you would like to share that I may
Yeah.
have overlooked in regards to Brian and the idea is the easy part?
Yeah. You brought up something very powerful for your book club readers, because this was something that I had to share with my students as I would bring Brian into the class. You have to understand that Brian's experience and background as a venture capital investor
Mhm.
in life science, in medical devices, these are very sophisticated industries. Um, and they require lots of upfront capital to bring these pharmaceuticals and medical devices to the marketplace. So the examples that Brian drew from in our classroom and the examples in this book for your readers are going to have that kind of uh, a bent to it,
Mhm.
right? But I want you to picture my students. They're first year MBA students. Not many of them were progressing toward medical, biotech, life science perspectives. Okay. Um, but yet these were the examples that Brian brought to the classroom. And so what we had to do, and what I think your readers need to understand, is that the numbers that Brian talks about are huge. Okay. Because of just the nature of the business that he was in. Okay. And some of the technologies were way above the background of our students and probably a lot of your readers in the book club. But it's the underlying wisdom that can transcend from a biotech environment to strategic thinking about any kind of a business startup. And if your readers look at this book from that perspective, they will deeply understand the wisdom that can help them hopefully make intelligent decisions about their own career trajectories. I'd like to bring to your readers' attention one other aspect of the book. A friend of ours, Scott Union, um, coined a term called Doveyisms. Now, Brian is very folksy in how he would speak to my students. Okay, so he didn't use um, sophisticated language that only a biotech entrepreneur would understand. He would simplify things in his sayings and in imparting his wisdom. And Scott called these pithy sayings that Brian had, he called them Doveyisms. And as Brian was writing the book, I said, Brian, you have to figure out a way to infuse those Doveyisms into the book. And I didn't know how he was going to do it. And so he wrote the book, and I was reading chapters and so forth. And I'm saying, okay, the Doveyisms are hidden in here somewhere. But then when the book came out, in the appendix section, he made a list of Doveyisms. And what I would ask your readers is to look at those Doveyisms. They're simple sayings, and they have so much deep meaning behind those simple sayings. And that's where the wisdom comes in. And that's where your readers will get so much value from that perspective. So I miss him every day. We were friends. We were, what was interesting to me, I wrote a book called The Entrepreneur Within. It was more of a corporate entrepreneurship. And both of our books were coming out around the same time. Mine came out in October and in January of 2023. His came out in October of 2023. And we talked about doing a combined book tour. And, so we were getting close to the launch of the book, and that's when we lost him. So it was a dream to be able to do a combined book tour with him. But I'm honored to represent the idea is the easy part in this capacity.
Well, we thank you so much for being here. And I'd like to formally offer to perhaps visit this conversation and continue the conversation into your book. It's very, I'd love to hear more about your book. And what I'll do is I'll go in and read it, and then we can re-collaborate. And I'd love to hear more. And perhaps we could share it with our audience. Um, the same idea, the intent, and some of the key points that are discussed within your book, and how it can help other business owners and entrepreneurs, or entrepreneurs in this case.
Right, right. Well, I would be excited and honored to do that, but my purpose with you today is to stand in for Brian on the idea is the easy part. So thank you for giving me this platform for sharing Brian's amazing wisdom with your audience, and I hope people enjoy the book. And I'm happy to I would invite your book club members to reach out to me. You can share my email with them, and I can engage with them on questions they may have about the book as they're reading it, because so many of these stories he shared with me in person. So I'll do my best.
Absolutely. Well, you're welcome to share your email address here and now if you like, and I'll post it as well.
Sure. My name is Alex DeNoble. So it's all lowercase, one word, ADENOBLE, ADenoble at SDSU, that's San Diego State University, ADenoble at SDSU.edu. And if you have questions about the book, email me there in the subject line. Just put questions about the ideas, the easy part. So I'll recognize when people are reaching out to me in connection with this book. I'd be happy to respond.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Alex. With that, we will let you continue your day. And again, we appreciate your time and we look forward to hearing and learning more about you in the near future.
Excellent. Teresa, thank you for your time spending with me today.
Absolutely.
All right. Take care.